kind of tangential to anything like fully interesting, but like as a kind of drum percussion kind of thing, communicating gesture of like we finished. So like for example, if I was like a violinist or something, I would kind of still be like this, and then like I would kind of signify I'm done by like coming out of that position.
Yeah.
Right. But both of us had sort of finished, but we were still in the performance. But like our kind of hands were down anyways. But we both still were like in performance, and then like you know, so like communicating that we are done performing is almost like a posture thing as opposed to like taking my hands off the piano.
Should I have like a bell? Just kind of,
But
I guess that would be part of the percussion.
Yeah.
So
But it was interesting that because like I was aware that we were both, that moment was still going on.
Yes.
And that moment was silent.
Yeah.
You know, but we're still both there, and like it was kind of interesting of like the like communicating that without it was tangential, but I was like, oh yeah, this is nice. Like we're both like we're still there, we're still there. That was really cool. So like some kind of cool moments in there.
Lovely. It's always interesting playing double percussion, and all of the sort of. I mean, we got sort of a similar palette of sounds, but you got electronics as well. But in terms of our acoustic sounds are sort of quite similar in that sense. But it's interesting trying to go together and then try and sort of play very differently as well.
We had some stuff, particularly towards the end when you were kind of doing brush stuff and I was doing just kind of hand texture stuff, where we had overlapping like timbral language, like friction and but like you had purely acoustic versions of that, whereas I had processed versions of that, but they kind of intermingle. So that was like a kind of a cool thing where we're both speaking this sort of friction language, but from two places. Because like my version, well, I guess that's not super quiet, but it's quieter than brush. Well, I guess actually they're very similar, but like but like the overall what you hear more is from the speaker while I was doing it. So it was like a real versus like either a hyper real or a synthetic, because like it in this case it was just processed versions of that for me. So it was like that in particular was a kind of a cool moment where it was like, because with double percussion, with double anything but double percussion specifically, because your sounds, like it's kind of hard, other than the fact that we have acoustic and electronic, but like the acoustic sounds, there's no reasonable separation between them. I have kind of head sounds and metal sounds, and you have head sounds and metal sounds, and like so there's no clear distinction of like you're playing bongos and I'm playing tam tam or something like we have clearly overlapping kind of things that ends up often making like a kind of a larger instrument that we're both part of, which I guess is in general in improv, like you sort of do something bigger than the individual. But like there's for me, I'm always a little wary of ending up too much in there. We arrived in an area that did this, and it did it, I think, in a musically satisfying way, but I'm in a musically satisfying way. But I'm always a little wary of, let's say, like you start doing bell sounds, and I'm me doing bell sounds too, just sort of following each other around. It's like that. I'm always.
And once you start, it's hard to get out of.
For sure, because it's one of the things that it's very easy to do. Yeah. And it's like it's very like it's there for free.
Yeah, and even more so in this, but also in other contexts as well. It's the same thing if you start sort of copying what each other is doing, and then suddenly you end up in this loop, and it's impossible to get out. Yeah,
and there's moments for that. Like we arrived at something like that organically, and it was interesting, and I don't that was really nice. But like I will almost always run the opposite direction. Yes. Like if you started doing kind of those sounds, I will. Even of like, like I will. No, I'm not going to do that. I will kind of override like like aesthetic instinct just because of like what memory version of me is, which is kind of a separate thing as well. Like I'm kind of curious, how much do you? Because I think with improv, there's a balance between like instinct and then like not instinct. I guess whatever you would qualify as the opposite of instinct. That I find myself, how do you find yourself relating to instinct in that way? Do you tend to just kind of go with it? Do you tend to like actively, not censor, but like do you actively, control your instinct, or do you kind of try to change? Like what do you do with instinct?
Well, I try to have some awareness of what I have done when I play.
Like in today possible. Or in like always?
Both, I guess. Okay. But also today, so there's moments where, I wanted to sort of emulate what you were doing and see if I can change it. And that's also with the electronics as well. It's quite interesting when you get these. It's very layered straight away. with the nature of doing stuff with electronic instruments and with purely acoustic, and so building on those layers. But yeah, having a memory of when you've done that, and then you might change to something, and I think, wow, that's amazing. I want to do that thing, but then being again saying, actually, I need to find my own way with it. But it's a bit of a twofold. But I tend to be quite so instinctual as a player and not think too much, because there is like a fear of over intellectualizing it as well, where you kind of think, but. Yeah, so being in the moment, but then obviously during like in other contexts you might sort of think more consciously about it, but then sometimes just letting loose, and because those natural moments will eventually sort of happen anyway.
I can resonate and kind of agree with that, just because for me, like the instinct, obviously it's central to like improv, like we're like that's the whole kind of thing of it. But for me, like I always have like wariness of certain specific things like that, like where it's like that would sound nice, but I'm not going to do that because I think it would be better if I didn't. But I still maybe it's like a matter of time frame, or whatever, but like micro ideas, like material ideas, I'm happy to be a lot more instinctual. But for like, okay, well, I do this thing next, or what just happened, like those larger zoomed out things, I tend to like opposite of it, like I tend to like actually try to inhibit that to a certain extent,
exactly.
just to like, because then it's very easy then the performances that begin quiet and then loud, or that, like those kind of very predictable things, just because like it would be very simple for both of us to begin and maybe like beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 boop,
and then,
we sort of do that, and like, but that's kind of, I don't know, I think there's a time and place, but I think largely that could be very musically boring.
Exactly.
So like to consciously not do what sounds natural, or not do what sounds easy, or not do what sounds familiar, and
it's even the thing where when you do something which that's amazing, and then if I want to join in, then it becomes something else, because now we're both doing it, and for better or worse, it is not the same thing anymore. So there's several moments, I mean, not necessarily now, but generally where you hear a thing, you think, I'm going to join in with this idea, and then you join in, and then you kind of go, I kind of ruined it a bit. So, in
that sort of thing, do you stop, or do you commit, or I imagine it varies, but like what's your...
It varies. Well, I try to not get into that situation, although it happens, and there's moments where you kind of think, I'm going to work my way into the texture and sort of make it work, and there's times we sort of have to just sort of stop it and go, that wasn't supposed to happen. I'll do something else, and then reduce the pain, I guess.
Because like that sort of like with improv we don't all often get like big breakneck changes, because for loads of reasons. So I kind of like, I find that fascinating of like starting something, like getting a whole thing going, and then nope, and just like nope.
So I enjoy the sound of that more and more as well, right? So there's that kind of thing where maybe I'm just getting, maybe I'm messing up so much I'm getting used to the sound of it. I don't know, but that kind of thing. I actually enjoy it, where you suddenly go these amazing shifts, and then it's like something totally different. And it feels quite like, speaking of electronics and not electronics, it feels like you sort of pressed a button. So you've got this texture going on, and then suddenly a person just stops. It's kind of like you press like the off button. Which that kind of sound I find quite interesting.
For sure. I mean, even with a lot of the processing, like we were talking a little bit before, but like with the processing that I'm largely doing now, it's very on-off, like by design, because I kind of like that idea of like having things come in and out. And for some of those moments where we have like these multi-layer textures, where I'm doing a sound, and then whether I bring an effect in or out radically changes, like that, like it is literally the on or off button, which like all of a sudden goes like or not, and that like makes for some those moments I relished a lot, and I made a lot of them in this, which is because I aesthetically like that, but I think made for some kind of cool things in that way. Another thing I was kind of thinking is that like, I know you do a lot of kit playing, and I did double. I know you do a lot of kit play.
Double traditional.
And this is not that, but not that. Like, how do you feel like your, I guess, percussive language? I mean, like your feet end up out of the equation to a certain extent. Which was, I guess, would be a different thing. But do you find, like, do you sort of orchestrate in a similar manner? Like, is your sense of phrasing different? Because like, these are sort of a lot smaller, brighter, higher sounds that you might often have like on a traditional kit, or like how do you find your relationship to like gesture and stuff? Is it different? Is it a different instrument? this?
Both yes and no. I think to some extent my playing definitely changes. I feel that, well, I grew up as a kid player playing jazz drums, and you do sort of, when you've done this forever, you kind of end up with this sort of not predetermined, but you have these habits. And as soon as, I mean, this is sort of, it's not new, but in terms of how long I've been playing the drums for, this is sort of a new thing, and it's sort of easier to get out of those habits in a bigger degree, I guess. And but in terms of like my language, it's pretty similar, but with this stuff, it's not as sort of, the habits are not there in the same way as with the full drum kit.
Is that good or bad or both? Like,
I think it's possibly a good thing. I mean, I'm sort of conscious of it in the kit playing, and I'm sure playing this kind of setup has also changed my kit playing as well.
Yeah.
And there is like a dialogue between the two. I don't see them as separate per se, because sometimes I might even have a bass drum and just a snare drum with objects, and so there is that sort of crossovers, like diagonalness, all of these different permutations of what the drum kit could be for me. I mean, in terms of how I set up. It feels different to play like this and not having a big ride cymbal and all these things. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that one is I was kind of going to like gonna go kind of slide into a more like drummerly question, in that like when I play more drums drum set, the wash like and sustain is like, it's almost like the sustain pedal on a piano or reverb for a guitar player. Like we have this like that we can just sort of like lean into, that can be like, not that it hides the sins, but like it's a very warm blanket to kind of sit in this sort of wet space. Whereas like here, I mean, you do have some sustaining things, but they don't do that.
Totally.
So like it's super naked.
I had the same thing with those like cymbal sizzler things. What are they called? Like chains.
Yeah, like the little chain things.
Yeah, I had one of those on my ride cymbal once, and it kind of like increased what you're talking about by a lot. And there was one, I had a rehearsal or a gig somewhere, and I forgot it, and I totally panicked. Right? It was just like horrifying moment where, so after that, I've had to have a big think. I thought I'm actually have to like do a detox from the chain.
Okay.
So I just put the chain away for like 2 months.
Wow.
I thought I'm not going to use it, because I was it was just my fear of doing this thing without the chain was quite weird. Totally ridiculous, but
yeah.
But it's that thing. I know what you mean. Having that big, if there's like a big tam tam, or if it's a big gong, you have this like breathing space, and as drummers, I guess as musicians, the whole silence thing can be difficult, and the drummers as well, and leaning into, like we spoke about, like you mentioned before, like after we'd finished, we had this like silence, which wasn't uncomfortable, but there was like an obvious
it was
silence.
Clear that we were still there was not
performance space, right?
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing, and being quite brave in that silence. And when you have these big cymbals, you can sort of hit it, and you can not do anything, but you're still sort of doing something, because the cymbal or the gong is still playing.
Yeah, I remember when I first started doing electronics with drums, I moved away from having some kind of looper or some kind of capture device, which felt for like quite a while very naked in the same way, like different sonically, but like naked in the same way that like sounds are only happening if I was actively making sounds, which I hadn't so much thought about in that way. But like if I had some kind of loopers or some tabletop electronics or other things, I could get a thing going and then either be thinking or be preparing another thing while there's music still happening.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Whereas like that completely disappeared.
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't doing a sound, there was no sound.
Yeah.
And then I sort of got used to that and then grew to like that. And now, even though I do have some loopy stuff here, for the most part, I like to keep it to that sort of thing, just because it's very easy to like, get a thing going, particularly with electronics. Like you can get like 10,000 things going. I've separated it from my gestural language. Like I'm not thinking about that anymore. And then I can just like carry on and like add stuff that like maybe isn't musically interesting or maybe too dense, because I have like 4 layers of stuff going on that I'm not consciously attending to anymore. Whereas if I was like doing a texture here, I know I'm still doing that texture, and like I'm aware that so like I kind of have to physically maintain it. So I've kind of leaned into, like, I guess in the same way, like running away from the quilts. But there's something, that's a thing that is quite different from this. Like, I was just wondering.
I mean, this is very much like a start-stop kind of thing, right? I make a sound, and then it's sort of, as soon as you stop playing, it's sort of gone. So you have to work quite hard with this stuff in that sort of physical way, right? Because it's like, as soon as you stop, it's like completely gone, which is also quite interesting, and it sort of leans into other ways of interacting. You might sort of have like this interrupting quality where you might do like a sort of an interrupting sequence, and then you stop, and then it's quiet. So it kind of gives for that sort of play stop moment. It kind of leans a bit into that for me, anyways.
Yeah, no. I can see that.
There's so many ways you can do this stuff, obviously, but yeah, for me, I guess.
Yeah. Nice. Shall we play a bit?
Yeah,
more?
let's do it more.
If you'd like to support the making of these videos, please join our Patreon. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching.